morning, friends. So friends, in the previous class, we started a discussion on emergency provisions. We started a discussion on emergency provisions, right? So let me continue with this topic of emergency provisions. Remember, in our constitution, three types of emergencies are described. There are three types of emergencies which are mentioned. One is national emergency. Second one is state emergency. National emergency, state emergency, and financial emergency. Right? So these are three types of emergencies. Which are mentioned in Indian Constitution. Right? So Article 352 of the Constitution deals with national emergency. Article 356 and 365 provides grounds for imposing state emergency. And remember, the normal term that is used for state emergency is president, right? So president rule is a common term. President rule is a common term that is used to denote a state emergency, alright? So and the other one is financial emergency, alright? So this financial emergency is imposed according to Article 360. So these are the three different types of emergencies which are mentioned in Indian Constitution. So let me talk about the first one, that is national emergency. Alright. So let me talk about national emergency. Alright. So this national emergency under Article 352, the national emergency under Article 352 is imposed on the grounds of war, external aggression, and armed rebellion. So earlier we used to have the word of internal disturbance, right? So there was a ground called as internal disturbance, right? So this word of internal disturbance is replaced by armed rebellion. That means internal disturbance is no more a ground. Internal disturbance is not a ground for imposing national emergency. So this word internal disturbance is replaced by armed rebellion, right? So these are three different conditions, grounds for imposing national emergency, right? So whenever there is an external aggression, or whenever India is at war with other countries, or when there is a rebellion by armed forces, that is what called as armed rebellion, right? So it is on these grounds President can impose national emergency. That means, remember, President can or he may not. He may impose or he may not impose. So that means if there is a war, right, then President of India, so it is a ground for imposing national emergency, right? But right, if President or if the government doesn't want to have national emergency, it cannot do so. That means, so President may or may not. It is not always compulsory. To impose national emergency whenever there is a war or external aggression or armed rebellion. So if government thinks fit, then it can advise the President of India to impose national emergency. Alright. So remember this point very clearly. We have seen wars. We have seen wars. India had war with right other countries like we have war with say Pakistan. We have war with China. So it is India. India had wars with both Pakistan as well as China. It doesn't mean that whenever India went to war, there was an emergency. Alright? So how many times emergencies were imposed in India? Though we had 4 wars, but emergency was imposed only on one time. That too on the grounds of internal disturbance. Remember, right? The ground that was used by Indira Gandhi to impose national emergency was internal disturbance, not during the wars. Right? So this is what you should remember. And national emergency can be imposed in the entire nation. The national emergency can be imposed in the entire nation or in any part of India. In any part of India. So it can be imposed in the entire nation or in any part of India. That is that part where there is which is affected by war. A part of India that is affected by war or that is affected by external aggression. That part of India that is affected by war or external aggression. That means a national emergency can be imposed in the whole of India or in any part of India or in a part of a state. That means need not be entire state. Correct? Need not be in the entire state. So this national emergency can be imposed in any part of the state also. So that means it can be in the whole of India or in any part of India. So that part of India which is affected by war or external aggression. Right? So that is what Article 352 says. Right? So these are the grounds. These are the grounds for imposing. These are the grounds for imposing. Let me check once. Whether it is clear now? Whether my voice is clear now? The one who are online, just give me the reply. Whether my voice is clear? So now you have clear voice. So I got one of the answer. Okay, good. Alright. So that means remember this national emergency can be imposed. It can be imposed in any part of India or in the that is in the whole of India or in any part of India. So it is not always required. It is not always required to impose national emergency in the entire nation. It can be imposed. It can be imposed in certain part or any part of India. That is that part of India which is affected by war or external aggression. Right? So these are the grounds. These are the grounds for imposing national emergency. These are the grounds for imposing national emergency. Right? Am I clear on these grounds? Am I clear on the grounds of imposing national emergency? So the one who are online, just give me the reply. Alright, the one who are online, just give me the reply. So now going to the procedure for imposing national emergency. The procedure for imposing national emergency. Alright. So how national emergency is imposed? How national emergency is imposed. Alright. So if you take this imposition of national emergency, it is imposed by President of India. It is imposed by President of India. So national emergency is imposed. National emergency is imposed by President of India on the written advice of cabinet. On the written advice of cabinet. Right? Remember, it is on the written advice. Normally, if you take Article 74 of the Constitution, right? If you take Article 74 of the Constitution, Article 74 of the Constitution states that President shall act on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Right? So President shall act on the aid and advice. President shall act on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers, headed by Prime Minister. So that means when you see this Article 74, it is on the advice of Council of Ministers. That means in our Constitution we have the word of Council of Ministers. In our Constitution we have the word of Council of Ministers. Okay, but not the word of cabinet. Nowhere in Indian Constitution we have this word of cabinet. It is always mentioned as Council of Ministers, and it is on the oral advice of Prime Minister or Council of Ministers. It is on the oral advice. Just compare Article 74 with Article 352. Compare Article 74 with Article 352. Right? In Article 74, it is said that on the oral advice of Council of Ministers. Right? Whereas if you take Article 352, it is on the written advice of Cabinet. Right? Remember this. Right? The word cabinet is used only in Article 352. Except in Article 352, nowhere you can see this word of cabinet. Except Article 352, nowhere you can see the word of cabinet. The only provision where you see the word cabinet is Article 352. So make this point very clear. Of course, these kind of questions are not asked in UPSC, but they are asked in Group 2 kind of exams. Right? So this was added by 44th Amendment Act, because there was an instance in India where the powers were misused by imposing national emergency on the grounds of internal disturbance, where simply President was given the oral advice, right, and based upon the oral advice given by the Council of Ministers, President has imposed national emergency. So we have seen this in 1975. So in 1975, right, national emergency was imposed on the oral advice of Council of Ministers, and which is regarded as misuse of powers. So to avoid this kind of misuse of powers, right, now it is mandated that, now it is made compulsory to have a written advice. That means President should not impose a national emergency without the written advice of cabinet. Right? It should be on the written advice of cabinet. Alright? So the only purpose is to avoid misuse. Of powers. The only thing is, it is to avoid misuse of powers. Okay? So that is what Article 3 says. So it is the President of India, right, upon the written advice given by cabinet, President can impose national emergency. Right? But this is not the final thing. The decision of President, or President is the head of executive, we all know this. So the decision of President should be ratified by Parliament. The decision of President should be ratified by Parliament. Right? It should be ratified by Parliament. It should be ratified by Parliament within a period of 1 month. Alright, it should be ratified by Parliament within a period of 1 month. And this ratification should be done by passing a resolution. It should be done by passing a resolution. The ratification should be done by passing a resolution in both the houses separately. In both the houses separately with special majority, that is with 2/3 majority. So ratification means what? Ratification is nothing but acceptance. Ratification means it is acceptance, right? So the decision of president, right? The decision of president to impose president rule. The decision of president to impose president rule should be ratified by Parliament within a period of 1 month by passing a resolution in both the houses separately by special majority, that is a majority of 2/3 members, 2/3 of all the members present and voting, by a majority of 2/3 of all the members present and voting. So this is the majority that is required to pass a resolution, right? So a resolution should be passed. A resolution should be passed in both the houses separately, right? So already we have seen the role of both the houses, the role of Parliament in Constitution Amendment bills, right? So where a Constitution Amendment bill should be passed in both the houses separately by special majority. Now again in the case of emergency provisions, correct? So to ratify the national emergency that is imposed by the executive, it requires a resolution need to be passed in both the houses separately with a special majority, that is a majority of 2/3 of all the members present and voting. So once again I am stressing, this wording is very, very important, right? The right terms, the right vocabulary, the right language is very, very important to get marks. Alright? So it is 2/3 of all the members present and voting. So this is the majority that is required for passing the resolution. Alright? So once a resolution is passed, alright, once a resolution is passed, right, the national emergency will be in force. The national emergency will be in force for a period of 1 year. That means if a resolution is passed, the national emergency will be in effect, will be implemented, will be in effect for a period of 1 year. So that is what the procedure for imposing national emergency. So first it is the president who will take the decision, and the decision of president should be accepted or should be ratified by Parliament within a period of 1 month of such imposition. Right? So think that if it is not ratified, then what happens? I want you to give the answer. So the condition is it should be ratified within a period of 1 month. Alright? If it is not ratified, then what will happen? Unless you do your response, I will not go ahead. I want everyone to participate. You, whether it is right or wrong, do talk to me. Right? Do chat with me. Do talk to me. Right? If a resolution is not passed within 1 month, what will happen? Right? Actually, originally in our constitution, this ratification should be done within 2 months. The ratification was originally mentioned as 2 months time period, but to avoid the misuse of powers by executive, the period was brought down from 2 months to 1 month. So originally we had 2 months. Originally the constitution is for 2 months, but in order to avoid misuse, it was brought down to 1 month. It was brought down to 1 month. Right? If this is not ratified, then what happens? So if Parliament doesn't ratify, it is very simple. If Parliament fails to ratify after the expiry of 1 month, after that month, there won't be any effect of national emergency. After expiry of 1 month, there won't be any effect of national emergency. That is what will happen. So it should be ratified by Parliament within 1 month. If it is not ratified, right, there won't be any continuation of emergency after that month. So this is the condition. So if government want to continue this national emergency beyond 1 month, it should take the permission of Parliament. Ratification of Parliament means what? Ratification of Parliament means it is the permission given by Parliament to impose national emergency. So it is not just the decision of government. So even every member of the Parliament, it is also the decision of Parliament. So Parliament contains people's representatives. That means without the acceptance of people of India, national emergency cannot be continued. Remember this point. So it should be ratified. It should be ratified within 1 month. If it is not ratified within 1 month, there won't be any continuation. Of national emergency. Right? This is one thing you should remember. And if it is ratified by both the houses, the national emergency will be in force for 1 year. Right? So it will be in force for 1 year. Remember, now whether this national emergency can be extended beyond 1 year, the next question, the other doubt that comes. So normally it is for 1 year. So can it be extended beyond 1 year? Is there any chance? Or whether our constitution allows extension of national emergency beyond 1 year? So what is your opinion? Please just give me the chat box. What is your opinion? So remember, this national emergency can be extended beyond 1 year. It can be extended beyond 1 year. That means, right, if it can be extended beyond 1 year for any number of time. So there is no time limit on national emergency. Remember this point, right? So this national emergency can be extended beyond 1 year, but there is a condition to extend this. Right? To extend national emergency beyond 1 year, a resolution need to be passed. Right? To extend national emergency. Right? Beyond 1 year, a resolution need to be passed. A resolution should be passed before the expiry of 1 year. Right? That means before completion of that year itself, a resolution need to be passed in both the houses of Parliament. Right? So a resolution need to be passed. So the reason for using this language is, it is this language that you should know. Right? You should get habituated to use this kind of language in the exam. So this is the legal language. Or the actual language of quality that should be used in exam. Right? So just listen to me, right? Here, right? Listen to me. So just listen to me continuously, and you will come to know. All this vocabulary. Right? So to extend national emergency beyond 1 year, it requires a resolution need to be passed in both the houses of Parliament. Right? A resolution to this effect should be passed in both the houses. right, before the expiry of 1 year. Alright, so it is attained by same majority. A resolution need to be passed by same majority, that is majority of 2/3 of all the members present and voting. It is by special majority. It is by special majority, right? So a resolution need to be passed within a period of 6 months before expiry of 6 months before expiry of the term, that is 1 year. Alright, 6 months before expiry of term of 1 year. So that is what the condition for extending a national emergency beyond 1 year. Alright, so a resolution should be passed. A resolution should be passed, right, within a period of 6 months before expiry of the term of 1 year. So if a resolution is passed, again the national emergency can be extended for another 1 year. That is, so this can be done for any number of times. So this extension by passing a resolution can be done for any number of times, right? So that is what the procedure for imposing national emergency, right? So this is the procedure for imposing national emergency. Alright, so once again I will repeat, a national emergency is imposed on the grounds, right, war, national aggression or armed rebellion. It is done by President of India on the written advice of cabinet, and the decision of president should be ratified by parliament within a period of 1 month. That is by passing a resolution in both the house of parliament with special majority. Once it is passed, once a resolution is passed, the national emergency will be enforced for 1 year. Okay, and to extend this national emergency beyond 1 year, right, the same procedure, that is a resolution in both the houses should be passed by special majority within a period of 6 months before expiry of term of 1 year. That before completion of that 1 year itself, a resolution will be passed. If a resolution is passed, then the national emergency will be in continuation for another more year. So this is how a national emergency can be extended for any number of years. A national emergency can be extended for any number of years. That means in our constitution we don't have any time limit. In our constitution we don't have any time limit for extending the national emergency. So it can be for 3 years, for 4 years, and 5 years, or for 6 years. The only thing is, it is a resolution passed. It is a resolution that should be passed. Alright? Now, think that a government keeps on extending national emergency. Think that a government keeps on extending national emergency. Don't you think it has misuse of powers? Don't you think that it is a misuse of powers by the government? If government goes on for extension of national emergency, so don't you think it as misuse of powers by government? Yes or no? Now I want you to give the answers. Alright, so COVID-19 is different issue. Right? On what ground this national emergency is imposed? See, we have 3 grounds. Right? So, think that in the name of war, or in the name of what you call external aggression, government went on, just imagine a case or imagine a situation where government went on extending this aggression, went on extending national emergency. Just imagine, right? Just imagine where the governments have extended the national emergency, right? So don't you think it as misuse of powers? No, for me it is misuse of powers, definitely. Alright? For me it is misuse of powers. Or in case, if there is a misuse of powers by government, now is there any check on such misuse? Alright? So think that when there is a misuse of powers by President of India, because he is the head of the government. So legally speaking, it is President who is answerable, who is responsible, who imposes national emergency. Think that if there is a misuse of powers by government in imposing national emergency, so how this misuse can be checked? So is there any safeguards? Is there any safeguards against? Is there any safeguards against such misuse of powers by government? Is there any safeguards of such misuse of powers by government? Right? So I want you to give the answers. Now one going online, I am waiting for your answers. I always say, right, it is your interaction with me that will encourage me. Alright? So what are the kind of safeguards, or do we have any safeguards? Alright? So remember, coming to the safeguards. So government has every power to impose national emergency. So it can advise, the government can advise the president to impose national emergency. But whether it is just the decision of government, whether it is just the decision of government to impose national emergency, whether it is only the decision of government that we need to impose national emergency. Now who should accept? So it should be accepted by Parliament. So without acceptance of Parliament, the national emergency cannot be extended. Right? Without the imposition of, without the acceptance of Parliament, right? The national emergency cannot be continued. At maximum, government can impose national emergency for 1 month. But to extend beyond 1 month, it requires ratification by Parliament. So ratification by Parliament itself is a safeguard. Ratification by Parliament. Ratification by Parliament itself is a safeguard. Right? So there is a parliamentary safeguard. Very, very important question for UPSC. Very, very important area to be asked both in prelims as well as in mains. Alright? So there is a parliamentary safeguard, and this parliamentary safeguard, it is in the form of ratification by Parliament. Right? At the same time, there can be judicial review. Right? There can be judicial review. Judicial review is always there. Alright? So that means there is a parliamentary safeguard as well as there is a judicial safeguard against misuse of emergency powers by government. So though government has the power to impose emergency, but still, right, there is a safeguard against any kind of misuse of powers. There is a safeguard against any kind of misuse of powers by government. So one, it is parliamentary safeguards, other one it is judicial safeguards. So we have both parliamentary safeguard and judicial safeguard. Am I clear to you? Am I clear to this point? So take the question on this point. Take the question. Discuss the grounds for imposing national emergency. Discuss the grounds for imposing national emergency. And what are the safeguards available? Against misuse of powers? What are the safeguards available against misuse of powers by executive? Misuse of powers by executive. This is very important question, very important area to be asked in UPSC exam. Right? So there is both parliamentary safeguard as well as judicial safeguard. So parliamentary safeguard, it is in the form of ratification, and judicial safeguard, it is in the form of judicial review. Alright? So these are the safeguards available. Alright? So now we have seen grounds for imposition. We have seen grounds for imposing national emergency, the procedure for imposing national emergency. At the same time, we have also seen the safeguards against misuse of powers. Now, I'll bring out a question or a situation. Right? Think that Lok Sabha is dissolved before ratifying the Parliament. That is, in case if Lok Sabha is dissolved before ratification made, then what is the condition? Whether national emergency can be extended or not?
It can be extended because still the other party member of Rajya Sabha is still
Good. Right, good. So, think that a situation of dissolution of Lok Sabha. In case if Lok Sabha is dissolved, dissolution of Lok Sabha. Think about a situation where Lok Sabha is dissolved. In such condition, that is, whenever Lok Sabha is dissolved within that 1 month period, because the condition is within 1 month, Parliament should ratify. In that 1 month, if Lok Sabha is dissolved, right, then Rajya Sabha should ratify. The ratification should be done by Rajya Sabha within a period of 1 month. This 1 month, one condition. Ratification should be done by Rajya Sabha within a period of 1 month. Right? That means ratification of Rajya Sabha is enough to continue the national emergency. So ratification by Rajya Sabha is enough to continue the national emergency. But right, the role of Lok Sabha comes into picture. The role of Lok Sabha comes into picture when the Lok Sabha is elected and constituted. Right? So that means the newly elected Lok Sabha should ratify the national emergency. The newly elected Lok Sabha should ratify the national emergency within a period of 1 month. 1 month of its first sitting. The newly constituted Lok Sabha should ratify national emergency within a period of 1 month of its first sitting. So here, in this case, that is in the case of dissolution of Lok Sabha, it is Rajya Sabha that should take the lead. It is Rajya Sabha that should ratify within the 1 month, because Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. Lok Sabha can be dissolved, but Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved. So Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. It is a permanent body, and Rajya Sabha should ratify within the 1 month. And coming to Lok Sabha, that is, whenever Lok Sabha is elected, right, the members of Lok Sabha are elected by people. So, right, after election of new Lok Sabha, right, the new Lok Sabha should ratify the national emergency within a period of 1 month from the date of first sitting. So it is from the date of first sitting. This is the important point to remember. So here 1 month is calculated. 1 month is calculated from the date of first sitting. Right? So this is the procedure for ratification of. This is the procedure for ratifying a national emergency in case of dissolution of Lok Sabha. Right? So remember this situation. Right? Remember the situation. That is the situation of dissolution of Lok Sabha. Am I clear on this point? If you have any doubts, please do ask me. I will repeat again and again. And coming to the candidates who want to have lectures in Telugu medium, right? The candidates who want to have lectures in Telugu, I'll make separate videos for Telugu, in Telugu, right? So, because, right, I don't want to disturb this class, so whatever topic that I am teaching in this class, I'll make A short videos means a videos of 5 minutes to 10 minutes on the topics that are discussed in the class in Telugu separately. Alright? So I don't want these students to be disadvantaged. So maximum whatever class that I am taking, I will try to make videos in Telugu also. Alright? But don't laugh at my Telugu language. Alright, so this is about the procedure. This is about the procedure for imposing national emergency. So we have seen the entire process. Now coming to the effects of national emergency. Coming to the effects of national emergency. So what are the effects of national emergency? Effects of national emergency. So if you take this effects of national emergency, the effects can be seen on fundamental rights. The effects of national emergency can be seen on fundamental rights. The effects can be seen on center-state relations. The effects of national emergency can be seen on center-state relations. On fundamental rights, on center-state relations, as well as on life of parliament. As well as on life of parliament. Alright? So we can see these effects on these three areas. First, let me talk about effects on fundamental rights. Effects on fundamental rights. So we take these effects of fundamental rights. Take the effects of fundamental rights. Whenever national emergency is imposed, right? Whenever a national emergency is imposed, according to Article 358, right? All the freedoms which are mentioned in Article 19, the freedoms mentioned in Article 19, all those freedoms which are mentioned in Article 19 are automatically suspended. Right? All the freedoms which are mentioned in Article 19, they are automatically suspended. That means there is no other law that is required, there is no other order required. So automatically, whenever a national emergency is imposed, when there is a national emergency imposed, right, the freedoms mentioned in Article 19 are automatically suspended. This is one thing. Now, next effect, according to Article 359. According to Article 359, President by an order. President by an order can suspend any of the fundamental rights, right? So according to Article 359, President by an order can suspend any of the fundamental right. Any of the fundamental right. Except the rights mentioned in. What are those rights which are exempted from the effect of national emergency? What are those rights which are exempted from the effects of a national emergency? Can you remember the class? What are those rights which are exempted from the effects of national emergency? So coming to the exemptions, it is the rights which are mentioned in Article 20 and Article 21, right? Except the rights which are mentioned in Article 20 and Article 21. Except these rights, right? President of India can restrict any of the fundamental rights. President can restrict any of the fundamental rights. including the writs mentioned in Article 32. Right, remember, including the writs mentioned in Article 32, except the writ of. So I have discussed all these points in the previous class. It is not for the first time I am teaching. Except the writ of, whether all the writs can be suspended. Whether all the writs can be suspended. Remember, it is not all the writs, it is except the writ of habeas corpus. Except the writ of habeas corpus. The President of India can suspend any of the fundamental right. Right? President of India can suspend any of the fundamental right except the writ of habeas corpus. That means all the writs can be suspended mentioned in Article 32 except this. So which was clearly said by Supreme Court in? This was clearly said by Supreme Court in Menaka Gandhi case. Right? So I have asked you to remember two important cases. One is Shivakant Shukla case and the other one is Menaka Gandhi case. So when I taught Article 32, I have mentioned both these cases. Right? I have mentioned both what you call Shivakant Shukla versus ADM Developer case as well as Menaka Gandhi case. In Shivakant Shukla case, Supreme Court said that all the writs can be suspended. Whereas in Menaka Gandhi case, Supreme Court said that except habeas corpus, all other writs can be suspended. That means whenever a national emergency is imposed, right? President of India can suspend any of the fundamental right except the rights mentioned in 20 and 21. And another exemption is, right, the writ of habeas corpus. Right? Shivakant Shukla case versus Menaka Gandhi case. It is Shivakant Shukla versus Menaka Gandhi case. Alright? So it is in these cases. Supreme Court has talked about protection of life and liberty, and Supreme Court said that the writ of habeas corpus cannot be suspended. Alright? So this is the impact of national emergency on fundamental rights. Right? So once again, Article 19 is automatically suspended, and President by an order can suspend any of the fundamental rights except the rights mentioned in 20 and 21. As well as there is an exemption to the writ of habeas corpus. So this is right effect on fundamental rights. Now going on to next is the effect on center-state relations. Right? The effect on center-state relations. So whenever a national emergency is imposed, effect of national emergency on center-state relations, right? So here, whenever a national emergency is imposed, Union has every power to give directions to the states, even on the state subjects. That means, right, whenever a national emergency is imposed, right, Union government has every power to give directions to the state government, right? So union can direct the states. Union can direct the states in making laws over state subjects. Making laws on state subjects. Making laws on state subjects. So normally if you take the state subjects, on these state subjects, it is the state governments that has the power. That is, state subjects means those subjects which are mentioned in list 2 of 7th schedule. State subjects means those subjects which are mentioned in list 2 of 7th schedule. So on these state subjects, normally in normal conditions, right? In normal conditions, it is the state government. That has the powers. Alright? It is the state government that has the power to make laws on the state subjects. So this is in normal conditions. But remember, whenever a national emergency is imposed, the union government has every power to provide directions to the state in making laws over state subjects. That means state government should act on the directions of center. So whatever center says, the state should do it. Whatever directions that the union gives, the state government should follow such directions. This one. At the same time, not only center can direct the state governments, at the same time, center has every power to make laws on the state subjects. That means even center can make laws on the state subjects without suspending the state governments. So whenever a national emergency is imposed, remember the center has, the union has every power. Center can make laws. On state subjects. Center can make laws on state subjects, right? This is the power of center. So, in case ఒకవేళ నేషనల్ ఎమర్జెన్సీ ఇంపోజ్ చేసినప్పుడు సెంటరే తనకు తానుగా స్టేట్ సబ్జెక్ట్స్ మీద లాస్ చేయడం, రైట్? సెంటర్ కెన్ మేక్ లాస్ ఆన్ ది స్టేట్ సబ్జెక్ట్స్, రైట్? సో దిస్ ఈస్ వన్ పాయింట్, రైట్? So which is clearly mentioned in Article 250. Article 250 has clearly empowered. Center to make laws. Article 250 has clearly empowered to center to make laws on the state subjects. Alright? So that is what the power. That means even though there is a state government, state legislature, so without suspending state government, without suspending state legislature, center on its own making the laws on state subjects. So this is the power that is taken by union. That means whenever a national emergency is imposed, who is empowered? The state or center? National emergency imposed చేసినప్పుడు who is getting empowered? It is center. It is center who is getting empowered. So center is being empowered whenever national emergency is imposed. బాగా గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి, ఎప్పుడైతే నేషనల్ ఎమర్జెన్సీ ఇంపోజ్ అవుతుందో it is the center that has the powers, right? Center ki extraordinary powers ఉంటాయి. Extraordinary powers ఏంటి? It can make laws on the state subjects, right? So normally అయితే స్టేట్ సబ్జెక్ట్స్ మీద స్టేట్స్కి అధికారం ఉంటుంది, కానీ ఎమర్జెన్సీ ఇంపోజ్ చేసినప్పుడు, right, it is a center that we get the power on the state subjects, right? This is what we get. And what is the validity of such laws? What is the validity of such laws made by center? What we are saying, ఏం చెప్తున్నాము? Center has the power to make laws on state subjects. So ఇలా the laws made by center, till what time they will be in effect. ఎన్ని రోజుల వరకు అది ఎఫెక్ట్లో ఉంటుంది, ఎన్ని రోజుల వరకు అది ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్లో ఉంటుంది. కెన్ యూ గెస్? సెంటర్ చేసిన లాస్ ఎన్ని రోజుల వరకు ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్లో ఉంటాయి? అంటే సింపుల్ అంటే యాజ్ లాంగ్ యాజ్ దెర్ ఈస్ ఎమర్జెన్సీ దెర్ విల్ బి దీస్ లాస్, రైట్? సో రిమెంబర్, ఇఫ్ టేక్ దిస్ లాస్ మేడ్ బై సెంటర్, take laws made by center. Take laws made by center. The laws made by center will be valid as long as national emergency is in proclamation. Alright? As long as national emergency, is in proclamation. The national emergency ఉన్నంత వరకు these laws will have effect. That is, సెంటర్ చేసిన లాస్ నేషనల్ ఎమర్జెన్సీ ఉన్నంత వరకు ఉంటాయి. దట్ మీన్స్ యాజ్ లాంగ్ యాజ్ నేషనల్ ఎమర్జెన్సీ ఇస్ ఇన్ ప్రొక్లమేషన్, రైట్, దీస్ లాస్ విల్ బి ఇన్ ఎఫెక్ట్, దీస్ లాస్ విల్ బి ఇంప్లిమెంటెడ్. Once the national emergency ceases to have effect, once the national emergency ceases to have effect, national emergency ceases to have effect. That means that once the national emergency is ended, right, then within a period of 6 months, after ceasing, all these laws made by center will cease to have effect within 6 months. Within 6 months of such ceasing, right, the laws will cease to have effect. అంటే ఎమర్జెన్సీ అయిపోయిన 6 months వరకు కూడా ఈ లాస్ ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్లో ఉంటుంది. అంటే ఎమర్జెన్సీ కాలము సే ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ 8 months అనుకుంటున్నాను, మీకు ఎగ్జాంపుల్ అనుకుంటున్నా, రైట్, ఎమర్జెన్సీ కాలము 8 months అనుకుంటున్నాను. అంటే అల్టిమేట్లీ దిస్ లాస్ విల్ బి ఫర్ అనదర్ మోర్ 6 months. అంటే విత్ ఇన్ దిస్ 6 months, రైట్, దీస్ లాస్ విల్ సీజ్ టు హ్యావ్ ఎఫెక్ట్. సో ఎట్ maximum దిస్ లాస్ విల్ బి ఇన్ ఎఫెక్ట్ ఫర్ అనదర్ 6 months. 6 months తర్వాత ఎలాంటి ఎఫెక్ట్ ఉండదు, రైట్, 6 months తర్వాత ఎలాంటి ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ ఉండదు, రైట్. 6 months ఆఫ్టర్ సీజింగ్ ఆఫ్ ఎమర్జెన్సీ. సో విత్ ఇన్ 6 months దీస్ లాస్ రైట్ కెన్ బి సీజ్డ్. దట్ ఈస్ దే కెన్ బి విత్డ్రాన్. సింపుల్గా చెప్పాలి అంటే సెంటర్ కెన్ విత్డ్రా విత్ ఇన్ 6 months. రైట్, మన లాంగ్వేజ్ చెప్పాలి అంటే ఇట్ ఈస్ సెంటర్ కెన్ విత్డ్రా